Al-Imdaad Radio.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May peace and blessings be upon you all. We start by praising Almighty Allah and send salutations and blessings to Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Alhamdulillah, indeed, all praise is due to Allah. We praise Him and seek His help and forgiveness. We seek refuge in Allah from our soul's evils and our wrongdoings. He whom Allah guides, no one can misguide, and he whom He misguides, no one can guide. We pray that you're all doing well on this blessed day, and a very warm welcome to each and every one of you to Al-Imdaad Radio once again. Today, alhamdulillah, we have a special program lined up for each and every one of you, and we are live from Blackburn here in the United Kingdom to all our listeners around the world. I hope and pray you are all well with the mercy of Almighty Allah. We look forward to hearing from you all. If you are listening to this online or on the applications, kindly send us a WhatsApp message on 077 699 88376. I repeat, 077 699 88376. You can tweet us at Al-Imdaad_UK. Subhanallah. You may be listening to us internationally or here in the UK, and inshallah, just send us your messages, and inshallah, we'll try and reply to you as soon as possible. Subhanallah. Today, listeners, alhamdulillah, it's a show which inshallah is going to benefit many of us, not just here in Blackburn, but across the UK. And we have a special guest who has come all the way from South Africa. Subhanallah. Sister Safiya Moosa has joined us from South Africa, and she is the CEO of Spiritual Chords, which is a community organization doing some fantastic work around the world. And inshallah, during today's interview, we'll get to learn a little bit more about what they do and how we can here in the UK take part in such initiatives. The kind of work that Spiritual Chords are involved in involves eco-friendly projects, emergency relief, development projects, orphans, vulnerable care, clean water, sanitation, housing, shelter, education, healthcare, and many other projects in different parts of the world. So let's talk about these projects in more detail with Sister Safiya Moosa. If I can bring you in. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Sister Safiya, how are you?
I'm absolutely delighted to be in UK. It's been wonderful meeting the larger community and also a lot of the Muslim community here. Very interesting perspectives and new learnings for me after having visited here. So I'm very grateful for it.
MashaAllah. And is this the first time in the UK for you?
In my adult life, yes. I came here once as a very young child, but it's amazing to be here. I've come here especially for charity and community development related work, and from that perspective, I must say it's been just absolutely amazing to discover the type of work the people in UK are doing in service of other people.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. How are you finding the weather here in the UK?
It's testing me. Alhamdulillah. But I'm loving it. Yeah, it is cold but lovely.
Yeah, it's South Africa's totally different, and it must be hot there at the moment.
We're moving into our autumn now, so we're heading for winter.
Okay.
But although it can get as cold as this in Johannesburg, there's a different flavor to the UK cold.
Yeah, and this is our summer, unfortunately.
Oh goodness. Okay.
But no, inshallah, we're hoping for better weather this year.
Ameen.
But whatever Allah gives, we're happy with, inshallah.
Alhamdulillah.
Sister Safiya, firstly, Jazakallah for coming on Al-Imdaad Radio. I know you have a very busy schedule and you've been traveling across the UK. So firstly, may Almighty Allah accept all your efforts. May Allah give you barakah. And may Allah accept everything that you do now, in the future, and what you've done in the past. And for me, you're an inspiration, and you know what you're doing, it really gives us a boost that we can learn a lot from you. We can do so much more internationally as well as here in the UK as well. So Jazakallah for coming, and we are very pleased and honored to have you on Al-Imdaad Radio.
Very much a mutual feeling. I think that the real honor is mine. And you mentioned, learning from me. We all learn from each other, and really, it's Anta Maulana, Allah is the teacher. And every experience we go through, whatever we involve ourselves in, adds to our experience treasure box that we share with each other. So I've been learning a lot from all of you.
Allahu Akbar. Allah, may Allah accept from us all. And subhanAllah, this is indeed the work of Allah. This is indeed the work of Allah. And inshallah, during the interview, during the course of this program, we'll get to discuss some of the work that has happened and your experiences where, sometimes we take on a project, but how Almighty Allah completes everything for us through the miracles, and which we have witnessed ourselves. I mean, yourself and myself, different parts of the world, we get to see and hear of things. And it just increases our iman, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
It's amazing. So, Sister Safiya, I want to ask you, and the listeners out there want to know, what exactly is your involvement, and how did you get involved in these kind of activities?
I think from a young age, very inspired by my parents, who were very charitable and not involved in charity work through organizations, so to speak, but just watching them show kindness to other people. Coming from South Africa, there's a large base of people who are underprivileged, and just watching how my parents behaved with them, and instilling compassion in us by example. Also, coming from a family where there's a legacy of my grandparents who donated, community centers and properties to the community in South Africa for social development, and hearing those stories, it kind of inspires you to want to emulate some of the good conduct. It's very hard not to be almost magnetized by goodness of other people. Yeah. And I'm very lucky in that the first people you encounter is your own family. True. So through the inspiration, I guess, of my family.
MashaAllah. And when did you get involved with Spiritual Chords? How many years has it been?
Spiritual Chords is actually a label that was created about 9 years ago, in terms of being able to identify that certain projects that we had to give accountability to a donor for, where more and more people were saying, okay, we know you've done a previous project, we want to give you some funding for another project. It became more necessary to put a label to it. So, without wanting to use a personal name label, we created the label Spiritual Chords. And so Spiritual Chords, the label, has been about, say, between 6 and 9 years old. And but in terms of doing community and charity work, I would say that started probably when I was a young child in school. Okay,
mashallah. And your affiliation with Al-Imdaad Foundation, did that start 9 years ago? Or?
That's a little bit more recent. I would say it's about 4 or 5 years ago. Okay. And that's one of the miracles of my life, because Al-Imdaad, you being Al-Imdaad UK, but my first encounter with the organization was through South Africa, the headquarters in South Africa. And they're just such remarkable people. It's just outstanding that Allah has chosen them in a very meaningful way, and just the way they conducted themselves was just too enticing. And so when the opportunity came, where I was assisting many other organizations as well, wherever there was a need, I didn't really identify first with the organization. I looked at the project and then said, okay, who's doing the work in this area or for this emergency relief situation? And Al-Imdaad just were outstanding in their transparency and conduct, and I just loved becoming absorbed into that family, I suppose.
MashaAllah. So with Al-Imdaad, which countries have you done projects in so far?
With Al-Imdaad, we've shared projects in Pakistan and in South Africa, essentially. As Spiritual Chords, I now, since my relationship has been established with the Al-Imdaad Foundation, I make my first consultation with them for advice and guidance before pursuing a project. So you could say all the others, even if they're independent Spiritual Chords projects, are in alignment with Al-Imdaad, because they are my guidance as well. So I start off by presenting the project to them and asking for guidance and advice. And but besides the partnership for specific projects in South Africa and in Pakistan, and now in Syria as well, a lot actually, I forgot about that, Syria and Palestine as well, for orphan relief. Spiritual Chords essentially works in other parts of the world as well. We've done work in other countries in Africa, Malawi and Zimbabwe as well as in Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, various, where the need is, basically.
Yeah, and for those listening at home, especially the sisters, to motivate them, it's important to mention that you also have a family yourself. You've got children, and to be able to manage these projects, to oversee, to support these causes, and also at the same time looking after your children, it must be a challenge for you.
I suppose it is a challenge, but whether you view any look, anything in life is a challenge when whether it's doing community work or not. Life itself is a challenge, but the eyes with which you view the challenge is more relevant than the challenge itself. Every challenge is actually an invitation from Allah to pull you closer to Him. So it's an opportunity. Now, if you look at it as a sufferance, it will be that for you. If you look at it as a rope that tugs you towards your Creator, no matter how bumpy that road may be, well, then it's an exciting opportunity which you have a chance now to show Allah who you really want to be for Him in any situation. Yeah. So I think it's more the eyes with which you view a challenge. And yes, the rotis still have to be made in time for supper, and the ghee has to be prepared for the food, and things like that have to be done, and children have to be seen to. It was challenging. What I liked about the challenge of being a mother of 3 children and having to fulfill all my needs and my roles as a mom and as a daughter to my parents and sister to my siblings, because we have social responsibilities, and our whole environment, including our own 5 senses, have rights over us. That's how Allah has designed us. So you have to fulfill the rights of your own, like I said, your own 5 senses, your vision, your hearing. How are you going to use this? You have the rights and responsibilities towards your family members as well. And then the larger part of that is the extended society, your community, and then the world at large, the planet. And it doesn't stop there. If Allah has created a universe, then if our responsibility is to extend to other planets one day in years to come, who knows, then we're going to have to take that on too. So the challenge itself, it's not the problem or an issue really. What's exciting is how much you're willing to make yourself available to Allah, so He will use you maximum for all the challenges that He's going to present. It's with His permission these things happen. So I actually, there is blood, sweat, and tears in all of this. And, everybody has difficult times and easier times. But in all of these situations, what's relevant is that it makes something of you. Yeah. And you can choose what you want it to make you. You can choose to become a certain type of person by making a niyat when you're embarking on any challenge. And trusting Allah, I suppose. So everything happened. We also, in modern society, conditioned with a very linear type of life, where you do one thing after another thing. Especially when you're in school, it's like this subject happens at this time, and then after that, the next subject, and then it's your lunch break, and then the next subject. So it's almost a linear pattern, which is quite natural, okay? But if we chose to live what I would call like a parallel existence with ourselves, with layers of lives, you can actually start one thing, and while it's taking a life of its own, attend to something else. For the sisters out there who understand what it's like to have to the demands of having meals prepared for the family, I just want to share a simple example of something that happened in my life, which I still chuckle over, and made me so aware of how Allah just makes things happen so beautifully. A meal had to be prepared, so I was peeling potatoes and frying onions literally at the same time, peeling the potatoes, stirring the pot while the onions are frying, just braising them. And I got an unexpected call from the governor of Syria and Pakistan to say that, he wanted to speak to the CEO of Spiritual Chords, and I said, okay, it's her speaking, and he mentioned something. I didn't quite hear him clearly. He said, oh, he expected my PA to answer. So I just chuckled to myself, thinking if he knew that I was actually, just in my kitchen stirring a pot right then and there. And I said, oh, she's on lunch break. But anyway, everything happened. He was offering to give me, make available land in Pakistan that we could develop for flood victims, because he had heard of one of our other projects and he was impressed with it. And so, I just thought to myself, what Allah wants to do, if you make yourself available, He will be pleased to, inshallah, then do it through you, or me, or somebody else. And it's not gender-based. Allah has always been equitable in the treatment of all people, and it wasn't age or gender-based or race-based. So yes, women have a powerful role to play in the development of their own environment at home, but to the larger community as well. And most of the donors that I deal with and people that I deal with directly are women. I hardly deal with anybody else. I have a life coaching practice where women and children come to me, and it's through this network that a lot of the work has happened. And women do amazing, amazing things because they're highly creative, and they come up with ingenious ways of supporting, whether it's hands-on or finding a means of creating an opportunity or a fundraising. Or
absolutely. We've noticed when we do our projects or appeals, sisters are more active than the brothers, and they come up with such ideas which we wouldn't really think of. And alhamdulillah, I don't know if you're aware, but in November of last year, we actually had a females delegation that travelled to Lesvos, Greece, to assist the refugees. And subhanallah, within 2 weeks they raised over £100,000.
MashaAllah.
And it was amazing to see how these sisters put effort behind it to raise these kinds of funds. But yeah, amazing. Alhamdulillah, Allah has blessed our sisters, and mashallah, they do support Al-Imdaad Foundation, not just in the UK but across the world. And we pray Almighty Allah continues that,
inshallah.
Ameen. And
they've supporting Al-Imdaad. I'm not just saying this, but really speaking, that the opportunity for women to participate in a way that's Islamically acceptable and proper through Al-Imdaad has been so phenomenal for me. To be able to maintain my Islamic identity, be a woman, be a mother, be a sister and a daughter, fulfill all those roles. Had it not been for Al-Imdaad and the manner in which they encouraged and supported the type of effort I was hoping to assist them with, I would never have managed to do it the way it's done.
Subhanallah. And I always believe, and I'm sure you do as well, it all boils down to intention. If our intention is sincere and we do things for the sake of Allah, Allah opens doors, and you think, how did this happen?
Exactly.
It's unbelievable. So, main thing is acceptance in this kind of work. And we as a team as well here in the UK, always having to remind each other, why are we doing this kind of work? Who are we doing this for? And as you saw when you came to the office, our vision is quite simple. To please Almighty Allah.
Alhamdulillah.
So may Allah accept from us.
Ameen.
I want to divulge a little bit into these projects, if that's okay, Sister Safiya. In Syria, alhamdulillah, a few years ago I had the opportunity to travel and to witness the container villages that we created through South Africa, Australia and the UK. And I did notice Spiritual Chords sponsoring some of the container homes.
Alhamdulillah.
How did that come about? Who fundraised, and was that from sisters in South Africa, or how did it happen?
It was from sisters in South Africa and Dubai as well, and a little bit from Pakistan as well. Yes.
Whoa.
What happened was, obviously, Syria was a big matter, and it has been since then. And when the refugee container village whole plan came about, at that time, IHH, which are also my implementing partners for some of the things that are done in Syria. Just to mention to you that, when Sister Nalindal from the IHH visited South Africa some years back, I think it was in 2011 perhaps, around February, we we prayed Salat together at my home and had an opportunity to discuss some of what's going on over a cup of tea.
Yeah.
And in this casual speaking, I asked, as a woman, how can women help the women of Syria? Because a lot of the work is just about food.
Yeah.
And so many organizations come in with a lot of funding, even the, internationally, the Red Cross and the United Nations. And that's necessary, but because they're already delivering on that, where could women come in to support women in the absence of being able to be there for them directly?
Yeah.
And that's where the whole, I said, women have their own personal needs, and often this gets blanketed as a disaster area, and needs of specific genders, or whether it's a young child as opposed to an older person, are not looked at. So in discussing this, we said, I said, well, how could we send like toothpaste and soap and things like this to the woman? And just this casual discussion became the unfolding of a hygiene pack, which was the first hygiene pack concept, I believe, ever. So, and then the bigger organizations obviously have been running with it ever since. But that evolved into something quite big for us. And then that was our entry into doing work in Syria. And that further developed then, where Al-Imdaad Foundation said, we're participating with the container village. And does Spiritual Chords want to participate as well? And of course, we just said, Bismillah, let's go for it and see what happens, with no real plan in mind. Being a life coach and an empowerment coach and speaking to women regularly as a guest speaker, I then hosted a few of these events where I said, we're going to have the event, but you're going to buy a ticket that is going to go towards charity. So the women responded very well to this. We did similar things to, I believe, some of the amazing work that you've done here, where we had women baking things and selling them. A lot of times the smaller, the first small efforts come in, and other people then say, I'm going to buy the cake, but don't give me the change. So extra money was built on, and people gave extra donations. It just grew exponentially and organically by itself. And the Dubai and Pakistan element came in from one of my clients who just happened to be chatting. She lives in Dubai, and her young son had just passed away, 2 years old. And she said that, I want to feel content again, because I'm always so sad that I've lost my child.
Yeah.
And so I offered her a chance to help with this, and she had family in Pakistan. And, it was just all women between Pakistan, Dubai, and South Africa. We all communicated with each other and raised money for about, I think, almost 20 to 25 of the container homes.
MashaAllah, yeah, and I witnessed that myself. And I saw the Spiritual Chords logo, and I could tell you, the families there, subhanallah, majority were women and small children. And if you look a year before, when we visited the same areas, these people were residing in tents and camps in freezing conditions.
Yeah.
We went in winter when it was snowing, and we were thinking, we were only there a few days, we were thinking to ourselves, how are these people living in such conditions? And then when the proposal came for the container homes, unanimously we decided we have to do this. It's going to protect them in the heat, it's going to protect them in the winter. And when we were there, you could see smiles on their faces after a long time.
Yeah.
And within that village, there's also a play area for the children to play in. There's water facilities. So, may Allah bless you all for your efforts there, because you've made a huge difference. And firsthand, I've witnessed that. It's
nice that you're sharing this. And I think what's important is that you mentioned that the plight of the people was there first, and a year later you went in. I think a lot of us must remember that when we have a chance to assist, it doesn't matter how small it is, even if a woman or a man, for that matter, or a child makes a dua, that counts, because Allah is the acceptor.
True.
And what He does, the barakat in the dua, we won't know. He'll know what He's going to do. There was a young child, we were talking about miracles earlier. There was a young child who came to an event, and he came up to me very sheepishly and shy, and his dad was saying, no, tell the auntie. And this little boy was so scared to speak to me. He was about 5 years old, and he had a clenched fist, like he was holding something in it, but he's such a small hand. I wasn't sure what he was holding there, but he was like looking at his hand all the time. And he was so embarrassed when he opened his hand, and he said, my nana gave me this to buy sweets, and but he said that in Pakistan the children don't have sweets. And this was during the flood a time when, there was so much disaster and issues in Pakistan. And he said that he told me they don't have socks and shoes. And then he showed me a 2 rand coin, which is like, I don't know, maybe 20 pence or something. Okay. And he said, I don't know if this will buy sweets for a child in Pakistan, but can it do that? And I just wanted to cry. And he said, I'm so scared it's not going to buy it for them. So I'm scared to give it to you. And just seeing his emotion, and I told him, I said, you know what? This can buy sweets for 100 children. And not only that, it's going to buy them socks and shoes too. So he said, you can do that with 2 rand in Pakistan? I said, yeah, you can do that with 2 rand in Pakistan. And all I said is, Allah, this child has such a sincere niyat. Accept from him whatever you want to accept from him. And truthfully, I was doing a housing development project in Pakistan that got a bit stuck for a couple of months because I wasn't satisfied with the way it was going to be constructed first, and I wanted to do an eco-friendly one. So it did get a bit halted for a while till we developed a more zero carbon footprint project. And this youngster I met at the point where I was in the stuck state with my project. Okay. And immediately after he gave the 2 rand, the project just within 48 hours resuscitated and became bigger than we planned. And I literally did deposit that 2 rand of his into the charity account. And really, I have full faith that young boy's 2 rand made 5 villages come up. Allah. And we were only supposed to put up 1, but it became 5 villages that we didn't plan for.
Amazing, subhanallah. And it's these kind of contributions that make our work happen.
Absolutely.
Yes, you can get millions or thousands, but these small amounts, we don't know what Allah accepts. And
the sincerity of 1 million people giving you £1 is, I'm not saying that the bigger donations don't count, but as a woman working and as a woman trying to do this, I'm not going to deal with organizations that much. I'm going to deal more with the people around me. Yeah. I would rather collect 1 million. Okay, let's make a reasonable amount. From 100 people, I'd rather collect £1 and get £100 than to have one person give me that amount.
Yeah, I say the same.
Because the amount of barakat that comes out of it and the du'as that come from so many people, it's so sincere, because that 1 rand sometimes is everything they have.
Yeah. No, subhanallah. So I totally agree with you. And just to touch on that village, I don't know if you're aware of this, but there's a old lady living in that village that's around 75 to 80 years old.
Goodness.
Okay. Gary Ziad is a witness to this, so you can ask him.
Okay.
And the only thing she does all day is sits there and reads the Quran.
Subhanallah.
She sits there and reads the Quran, and her glasses are so thick that she has to put the Quran very close to her face. And we were just watching, and we became very emotional when we saw this. And the surrounding neighbors and the family are saying, this is all she does all day. She's not worried about food. She's not worried about anything. She just wants to sit with this Quran all day.
Subhanallah.
And we were just thinking at that time, this old lady, over the past few years, must have suffered within her home in Syria, wherever she was living. Her home could have been bombarded or bombed or whatever, and still she's not let go of that Quran that she had.
You have no idea what you've just touched on, because understanding what this woman is doing is not just the fact that she's hanging on to Quran. You must realize Allah created the entire universe. The only thing He did not create was Quran, because it was His speech. He delivered His speech. Allah. She was having a conversation with Allah all the time. She realized the true value of life was not even her suffering. And for the sisters and brothers out there, but mainly appealing to the sisters who may think that, this is not a role that they have because they may have children and household responsibilities. It all can be fulfilled, even if you just have a niyat that Allah, I wish to help. He will bring the help, the means of you helping to you. Or if you make a dua, or even if, like I said, you bring your kids up to be charitable, that's also assisting a project. What's really important for the sisters to note is that these women, and in particular, and all the people in Syria who have suffered, even the children, a lot of them have already earned their Jannah because of what they've been through. Some of them have been martyred there, okay? And we still have to earn our place in Jannah.
Yes.
We haven't got it automatic. So while we're assisting them, I'm not saying they don't need help with creature comforts of this life, I'm saying understand that the larger meaning that this woman has grasped, the 75-year-old woman, is that really her Jannah was more important, and her connection and communication with Allah was more important. For us, some of these people, like I said, their suffering has earned them the Jannah already. We're helping them when in fact we're the ones who need help, because we have to find a way to earn our Jannah, and they are providing us an opportunity to earn our Jannah through assisting them. So they're helping us. And so when you're contributing like this, don't worry about how much and if or is it possible. It is possible. How important is your Jannah to you? How badly do you want to earn that? And someone has to suffer for you to have an opportunity to earn your Jannah. So take it as much as you can, even if it's just to make a dua.
Absolutely. No, totally agree with you. May Allah bless you for your words, subhanallah. I'm learning as we go along, Sister Safiya. Honestly, I'm learning as we go along from you. And, talk to me about this project in Pakistan. Alhamdulillah, we have many listeners, not just in Pakistan, but in the UK. We have a lot of Pakistani listeners as well. Tell us about this project, where it is and what exactly has been done.
Okay, Pakistan, the projects there started with the floods in 2009. And obviously seeing the devastation and the destitution of the people there, I must tell you that it affected so many people that there was an impoverished gardener in the apartments that I lived in, the flats that I lived in Durban, and he was one of the poor local people, the indigenous people from South Africa. And he happened to come to me just to ask for some cold water. I remember this day, and he just came, can I have some water? And as I was giving him this, on my laptop screen, I was watching online one of the flood videos. He broke into tears. He hardly has much himself, okay? And he told me, he said, ma'am, please, can you contact the President Zuma? Can you contact somebody? Tell them I will look after some of these children. And he barely makes ends meet for himself. He just broke down in tears. He said, you have to help them. You can't let them drown like this. Do something. And when he said this and I saw his passion, I just got even more vigorous in my attempt to try and, be of some assistance. The opportunity came to raise funds. I actually got some international Naat singers and local Naat singers, had a fundraising dinner and raised some monies, had a few of the ladies programs, raised some monies there. And then people were just being generous and contributing to the cause because they were witnessing what was going on. The idea was to build an eco-friendly, because while we want to do emergency relief, there's no, what we're doing sometimes without realizing it, in the rush to deliver projects and create living quarters for people. There's various factors that I noticed, probably as a woman, actually, knowing what I would want for my child. And women, by Allah's design, we're designed as nurturers. Men are the protectors and maintainers. Allah announces them as that in Quran. Allah announces us as nurturers. So it doesn't make us smarter. It just means that that's the way Allah designed us. So from the perspective of a woman, I'm saying, well, you're turning people into beggars by just handing over to them. Why not develop them, nurture their own skills in their plight? So we started a disaster risk resilience or disaster risk reduction program, training people what to do in the event of a flood, in the event of any storms or damage that came, while we were already then preparing to. So we didn't wait to prepare housing. We started training them that if the next flood comes, this is what you're going to do. You can build an earthen platform with clay or mud like this, which is readily available on the ground for them. This is how you protect your cattle. And in the process, then devised a means of building homes made out of bamboo, lime, and mud. Now, lime and mud was the plaster of the Mughal palaces, which has lasted centuries. Yeah. I just love the thought that the beautiful Sheesh Mahal is plastered with lime and mud. Because every time somebody tells me, I don't really know if I want to invest in a mud house of your project, I just laugh to myself and say, well, some Mughal king did it too, So, but subhanAllah, and then the bamboo was the structure, the framework of this, which is also readily available. It made the housing much cheaper. There was no damage to the environment, so no carbon emissions. It was zero carbon footprint. We were able to create structures that we could train the householders themselves, the people who were in distress, who didn't even have housing before the floods. They had straw sheds that they lived in, just straw walls with no roofs most of the time. I didn't even believe people still lived like this, like cave people. And so we were training them to build their own homes. That worked successfully. Over 300,000 people have been housed like this now. That's just with the project that we've done. There are so many organizations doing much bigger work. Okay, this is just a small portion of it. There's lots of people doing a lot of stuff. But from the perspective of spiritual Chords side of it, these structures then won an award with the Islamic Development Bank because they were actually developing people. They were empowering people in the process of giving them housing. They were then building in other areas and earning money from it, or trading. Say, I'll build your walls for you if you give me eggs for once a week for the next year. Things like this. We then started a literacy program where I created a sort of a cartoon in South Africa, which just a sample one, and sent it to Pakistan, and then they evolved it into something. A whole series of books were created of English literacy and Urdu literacy. And so within 3 or 4 weeks, people were learning to speak in English in a rural area that had never had education in any language before. And every time a child mastered, say, the first 40 books, level 1, we give them a tablet with it loaded into the tablet. These little kids, the first one is a 14-year-old boy. We said, okay, now you go and teach other children in other homes. He would say, okay, and they're starving. They have absolutely nothing, okay? So he would go into a nearby village, go to someone's home and say, I can teach your children literacy, and I'll come once a week or once a day to do this. And in return, can you give me a glass of milk? And for them, this was luxury. And then we taught the women to build smokeless stoves using the same method. So 1 or 2 women learned it. With that skill, they were demonstrating it to other women. So women started creating an economy in an area that has had zero economy for centuries. There's no business there. If they need anything, they work in the city. Somebody tries, and they grow as much shrubs as they can, but really arid land with very little. Now, if it could work in such a disastrous situation where there was nothing available to them, even prior to the floods, imagine the possibilities of expanding this. You're empowering people. You're using zero carbon emission materials that people can handle and make their own housing with. And given the opportunity, people will take themselves to the next level. They are doing things with the skills that they've now been trained in far larger than we anticipated. So a lot of this has become zero cost to us because they're doing it by themselves. They're saying, okay, I learned this training. I will build you a stove. Will you pay me 200 rupees for it? And one woman, Champa, who had nothing, very ill woman who was, besides not having ill health, she was unhygienic. Because like most of them, they have no bathing facilities, absolutely nothing available. In 16 months, she made $28,000 just making stoves for people.
Whoa.
The ripple effect of the stoves also is the fact that they now don't cook directly on dung. It's hygienic, it's cleaner, it's a fuel-efficient system made out of clay, which women are building for other women. And so Allah is so kind in that we start one little thing, but it expands into areas that we didn't even imagine. So this, I could go on. Just Pakistan, that's just the housing, and we put up the first theme park, the first eco-friendly theme park in the world that's designed purely for poor rural people to teach them sustainable living. So
was that your idea?
It was the one we did with Heritage Foundation. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I've seen pictures of that.
Yeah, the Sayani DRR Park, the Sayani Disaster Risk Reduction Park. So it's 8 sections, like you would get in Disneyland.
Yeah.
But there's no Mickey Mouse there. Okay. What it is all the activities are designed to teach people how to build their own chulas, the stoves, how to mix lime and mud, how to learn English literacy or Urdu literacy or whatever language. So we have different sections that teaches them how to make a platform to save your animals in a flood, how to save your grain and preserve your life in a flood time. So the entire area, and there's an amphitheater where they do shows and we demonstrate hygiene workshops, how to make soap. Forget about making the soap. They didn't know about soap because they didn't know how to bath. They have very little water available. Yeah. So we're teaching them how to wash your hands, how to then bath the rest of your body, how to make the soap yourself. And we're growing things like turmeric and other ingredients and helping them to make their own cleaning agents with it.
So you've not just been helping, but it's also empowering these people and educating them.
That should be the basis of any sustainable development project, is empowering people to manage on their own. Because like I said, it's now some of the, like the chulas, the stoves have become zero cost. They're making them themselves and earning an income. They've now created an economy. And that's how most relief projects should be, where you start it off with minimum funding and it must develop into zero funding because the people are equipped to do it themselves. More and more, that's what it should be.
Amazing. And you've done all this work in Pakistan. Have you been there?
No. I haven't been to any of the projects actually, except some of the South African ones.
This is the beauty about this work.
Yeah.
You know, even though you've not been, you've done so much fantastic work. It's unbelievable. And, you know, if somebody wants to view some of these projects, some of our listeners want to have a look at what you've done, is there a website or a Facebook page they could go on and have a look at this?
Okay, so I have to qualify what you said in that there is nothing that I can show you about what I've done, because I don't believe I've done any of this.
Allah.
I'm just very, very happy that Allah was happy to use me. Allah does.
No,
that's why we're human beings.
Allah.
We be what we're supposed to be, and He's the doer, so He does what has to be done. And when we're lucky, He uses us to do it.
No, subhanAllah. I love your sincerity and humbleness, but I can tell all the listeners around the world, mashallah, I have seen the work that has happened. And, you know, as I said before, it's all about intention.
Yeah.
And through sincere intentions, the work Allah is taking from you is unbelievable. And the only reason for this interview, Sister Safiya, is I want the listeners, especially our sisters and mothers, to understand that each and every one of them has got potential to do so much in different parts of the world. And I'm sure you agree.
Absolutely. You know, you're so genius. You bring up the most remarkable things. Every time you say something, I'm like, oh my word, he's just hit on like a something. Because everyone is unlimited potential. We have Allah said He created us and then He breathed something of Himself into us. If that essence of His breath is in us, where is there any limitation?
Allah.
He's the doer. His breath is in you. What are you not capable of, as long as it's within the parameters that is acceptable by Allah? You can still do it without and go out of the boundaries of what is acceptable by Allah, but then you're not pleasing Him. So you can do it and please Him, and then you double-barreled effect. So you score both ways. Now, if you're asking me where people can have a view of some of the things that have been happening, that I've been a very, very humble and a happy witness to, Spiritual Chords, I'm busy developing a website, so there is quite a bit of information there now, but it's not a complete website. But you can look at Spiritual Chords, www.spiritualchords.co.za. Okay,
Excellent.
That's the South African code. And then also on Facebook, Spiritual Chords, and I have a YouTube channel with some of the video clips of some of the projects.
Brilliant.
So that's also Spiritual Chords on YouTube, and Twitter is @Spiritual Chords.
Fantastic. So inshallah our listeners hopefully will like and subscribe to your pages just to follow and see what you're doing.
Of course. And please, if anyone wants to contact either you guys, Al-Imdaad Foundation, who I get inspired by, or even myself, if the sisters want to speak to another sister, so to speak, we're all part of the same family. I'm so happy if anyone calls, because I can tell you that yes, the rotis still get made, and yes, all the beds are made and the house is cleaned, the groceries get done, and you don't have to be running out there only to get this work done. I have 3 grown-up children now, okay, and I've been doing this for 15 years while they were still growing up. They're now all like 18, 20, and 22. So I'm telling, I know that it's difficult sometimes when you have young children to be doing field work, and I have yet done minimum field work, only in South Africa, handing over. And you don't have to be doing a big project for Syria. Sometimes your neighbor has, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said that you should not go to sleep without making sure that the radius of 40 homes all around you were fed before you slept.
True.
And so you can do it there. We've handed over in South Africa. And all this, by the way, there's no office. This gets done between my kitchen and my dining room. I have a laptop in front of one chair in my dining table, and then the pot is always screaming that it needs my attention in the kitchen. So just running between the two, these things will happen, because when you rely on Allah or deliver yourself to Allah with what you said, the intention, the only thing up to us is a sincere intention and the determination to see through. The success or failure of anything whatsoever, is always up to Allah. He decides if there's going to be success or failure in our human terms. It's always a success for him, the way he wants it.
Yeah.
So we just have to have the determination and the sincerity. And the sisters out there can achieve a lot. And you don't have to leave your home to do this.
And, Sister Safiya, I always mention to our listeners regarding the sincere fact that we need to appreciate what we have. Now, we, alhamdulillah, in the UK are blessed. Alhamdulillah, Allah has given us everything. A roof over our head. He never lets us go to sleep hungry. He's always clothing us beautifully. He's looked after us, but in different parts of the world, especially because I've traveled, we see people suffering on a daily basis. They don't know where the next meals are coming from. You living in South Africa, obviously you've seen poverty in South Africa. What advice and what nasiha can you give to our listeners regarding appreciation?
Ya Allah. I am so ill-equipped to give nasiha to anyone about anything. So all I can tell you is that if you're not in a state of shukr all the time, then you're cheating yourself of two things that are mentioned in Quran. In Surah Ibrahim, ayat number 7, Allah says, and remember your Lord called it to be declared publicly, that if you are grateful, I increase my blessings on you, and if you are ungrateful, my punishment is severe. So if you feel like your life is not a happy one, if you're lacking contentment, if you're distressed, if everything feels like a pressure, maybe it's just because you haven't been appreciating. If you haven't been grateful, then your life will feel like a punishment. Allah doesn't just send Nuh alayhi salam's flood into your house, or brimstone flying out from some volcanic eruption in your backyard like he did to nations before when he punished them. Our punishments are the lack of contentment. If you're not feeling content, if life feels like a strain, then just make shukr. Just go. I do this every night, where I start furthest away from the planets and coming into the cosmos and back to this planet, and then all the things that I can see and everything I can witness, even my kettle or my laptop or whatever it is, the light fitting the globe, anything. In seconds you can actually scan your entire environment and say, Ya Allah, I make shukr for everything that's out in the cosmos, and the view that I have, and this wonderful, amazing, crisp UK weather that's here right now. But I do this every night when I go to bed. The last thing I do is come closer and closer to myself, where I thank Allah. And when I'm thanking him, I give everything up to him, because I'm going to sleep now, and we know that in our sleep, it is like a death. Allah says, I give you death and I bring you back to life. So I said, Allah, this view is yours, the cosmos is yours, my light fitting is yours, the globe that's broken is yours, the globe that's fixed is yours. I bequeath everything back to you now, because it was never mine. It was just mine to use for today. The one I battle with the most, I even do this with my family and my friends and my siblings. I've always struggled sometimes, but it's become easier now because I've been doing it every day for years. I just say, Allah, my children are yours. I don't know why I sometimes choke on that one. I find it hard. I suppose it's human attachment. And sometimes I cry over it, but I say, okay, I know they're yours too. You can have them. None of this is mine. And when you wake up the next day and suddenly the kettle is working, and even if the microwave is broken, it was never yours when you went to sleep, so it doesn't matter. And everything else that's functioning, and your view that you have, and everything that's there for you, you say, Ya Allah, thank you. I have a whole cosmos to live in. I have this planet to live in. I have my home. I have this. I have that. You realize there's more that you have and less that you don't have. And the more you live in a state of gratitude and appreciation, the more barakat comes into your life. So that's the one element. The other one is, if you look at Surah Al-Imdaad, ayat number 42 and 43, it was the angels that spoke to Mary, and especially since we're talking about the sisters in particular today, we're focusing on them. Again, it's so beautiful. She was so appreciative of everything that Allah would actually bring her things right there. She had so much faith and gratitude, and so much, her yaqeen and her shukr was so big that when sometimes there would be fruit that was out of season in her in her home.
Yeah.
You know, it was just suddenly there. And it was Zakaria, who was her uncle, right?
Yeah.
He even said, but where did you get this fruit one day? And she said, Allah just brings this to me. When I wanted it, just is there. And he was in his old age. So taking inspiration from her gratitude and her yaqeen, he said, well, I'm in old age. I have never had a child. But if she can ask Allah for fruit out of season, then maybe I can bear fruit out of season. And that's when he had his child. So, I mean, look at the benefits of just being grateful and appreciative. You can be appreciative. And she was just in one room with nothing, and she was grateful. Yeah. So everything was brought to her. She never left her. And she was about 9 or 10 at that time. So, the sisters should actually look at this ayat in Surah Al-Imran, ayat number 42 and 43, where the angel said to Mary that Allah has favored you and purified you amongst women of all nations. And the ayat 43, he says, so bow down in ruku and sajda like those who go into ruku. So live your life in a permanent state of sajda and ruku. You don't have to be in a musalla with your forehead to the ground. Your acceptance and appreciation and submission is living a life of sajda and ruku. You accept everything with appreciation, and that's a permanent sajda. So if that was given to the most prized woman, then be like her, emulate that. Just live in a state of gratitude. So I hope that answers your question of appreciation.
It does, and I've benefited from that myself. That's the reason I asked you. But no, Jazakallah, beautiful nasiha. May Allah bless you, Sister Safiya. For the sisters that are listening, if you do want to get involved with the Al-Imdaad Foundation, just visit our website at www.alimdaad.co.uk. The volunteer forms are on there, and inshallah you'll be able to take part in such noble work as well, as Sister Safiya just mentioned. Sister Safiya, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for taking your time out, coming on our radio, spending time with us today. May Allah bless you and your family and give you lots more barakah. Ameen. And, before you do go, any final words from yourself?
Just a dua. May Allah bring everyone's rizq with ease, and may He put barakat in your rozi, and part of your rozi is what you have available to offer the world, not what you get for yourself. So may Allah increase that rozi so that you are able to benefit more and more people, all of you, all your listeners, wherever they are in the world. And I request du'as for myself, please.
Ameen. Jazakallah. Listeners, that was Sister Safiya Moosa, CEO of Spiritual Chords, the community organization from South Africa, carrying out some fantastic work. And I would urge you all, including myself, inshallah, I'm going to do this straight away, is go on spiritualchords.co.za. That's spiritualchords, one word, .co.za. Have a look at the work that Sister Safiya and the team are doing, mashallah. And Facebook, Twitter, search for Spiritual Chords, and you'll get to see some of the great work. And if you personally want to contact Sister Safiya Moosa, her contact details will be available on the website, so you can contact her, take some inspiration from her. And if any of you wants to speak to her whilst you're in the UK, let me know, and inshallah I'll forward the details on. Is that all right, Sister Safiya?
That's absolutely fine.
Expect 100 calls tomorrow.
Well, that's more du'as that I can collect.
Inshallah, you get more than 100.
Inshallah.
Subhanallah. No, Jazakallah. Thank you very much, Sister Safiya Moosa. That was all the way from South Africa, live on Al-Imdaad Radio. Listeners, I hope we benefited today. I have, and I know each and every one of you will have taken something from that. May Allah accept from us. May Allah give us the ability to do more. End of the day, it is Almighty Allah who's in control of us. But whatever we can do good, let's benefit the ummah. Let's love one another. Let's show compassion towards humanity. You know, here in the UK, there are many people suffering on a daily basis. In our own neighborhood, there's so many people that are in need. I can give you one example. Last week, a youngster just approached us over the weekend when we were handing some food over. And he said, this is the first time I've come to collect food. So I was asking him, generally, getting to know him better, and I was asking him, what have you been doing for food over the past few weeks since you've come into Blackburn? His reply was, I have no money at all. I live rough on the streets, and for food I've had to steal from the shops. And this is a youngster here in Blackburn. To survive, he's having to steal because he's got no support whatsoever. Now, he was a non-Muslim youngster. So I said to him, look, every weekend you can come here for food, and during the week, if you need any food, come here and we will support you. The message is whoever is suffering, no matter what background, what religion, what their history is, it doesn't matter. As Muslims, we are taught to help anyone who's in need. So each and everyone out there, whether it's a sister or a brother, look out in your own communities and make a difference. Support anyone in need. If you financially don't have the power to help, let us know. And inshallah, the Al-Imdaad Foundation, as you know, is your organization, and we will be here to support you. So let's make a difference here in the UK as well as abroad, and let's show what Islam teaches us and what Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam has taught us. And listeners, inshallah, just to let you know some good news as well, inshallah, very soon the Little Stars of Deen event will be back on Al-Imdaad Radio. We'll let you know regarding the dates on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, to follow us on there, inshallah. And also continue listening to Al-Imdaad Radio. We've got some fantastic bayans and nasheeds and Quran recitation on. As you know, Al-Imdaad Radio is on 24 hours a day, and inshallah we'll be having more live shows for you very, very soon. Okay, as we come to an end to today's show, I just want to say I love you all for the sake of Allah. Jazakallah for listening today. We'll be back soon, inshallah. Our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is reported to have said, "Khairun nas man yanfa'un nas." The best of mankind are those who benefit mankind. Keep listening online at www.alimdadradio.co.uk. Until next time, fi am. Welcome to Al-Imdaad Radio.